Grade inflation doesn't sound like an exciting, sexy topic regarding how you deal with high school or college. And yet, it is one of the challenges facing admissions committees and employers. Why? Well, if the measurements used by educational institutions are not somewhat consistent, how can the interpretation of those credentials be trusted? Grades are not just used in the college application process, as they also impact scholarship selections, awards, and employment. Hi, I'm Margaret Meek, and this is Grade Inflation Can Be a Problem. Grade inflation is the practice of rising grade point averages while the amount of knowledge imparted has not increased. So when the same course test is administered year after year, the average score stays the same or goes down, but the grade assigned for student performance goes up. While not a perfect correlation, we know that compared to SAT and ACT scores, grade point averages have continued to rise as the testing scores have remained relatively unchanged. For all the difficulties with these tests, they have continued to measure underlying knowledge in core subjects. Grade point averages should reflect that knowledge in a reasonably commiserate fashion. We also know that grade inflation has been happening for decades. It hasn't been a recent phenomenon, but the machinations to support grade inflation have become more insidious, especially in the shadow of COVID-19 learning loss. If you want to understand how crazily out of whack the measurements of academic performance have become, look no further than these practices. Schools are changing their grading system from a 4.0 base scale to a 5.0 or 6.0, or as reported to us last week, there are even schools on a 12.0 system. This is without counting extra points for honors or AP/IB courses. These high schools hope that their students will shine compared to those on a 4.0 scale. Instead of accepting the grade point averages as a consistent measurement, colleges must recalculate GPAs and adjust them to a consistent scale. Generally, they are refiguring them to a 4.0 scale. Or schools are simply pulling the grades from core classes or courses deemed important to that college from applicant transcripts and using those measurements to figure out a score that can be compared fairly. The second change that is becoming very common is that grading scales within the classroom are being adjusted to allow students to avoid failing. Teachers are being told they are not allowed to give a student a grade less than 50%, even if they haven't earned it or turned in their assignments. There have also been adjustments to the grading scale. For example, instead of an A grade being earned for a score of 90 to 100 correct answers on a test, the scale is being lowered to 85 to 100% or lower to earn an A grade. So why does grade inflation happen? In some cases, it has to do with changing perceptions. Seeing a B grade is deemed significantly less impressive than an A. With changing grading scales, past students would have earned a B for that score that today is awarded an A, and a B was not a scarlet letter. These attempts to alter perception are all smoke and mirrors. Sometimes grades are altered to try to level the socioeconomic inconsistencies in opportunity regardless of learning levels, yet the learning is what would better level those inconsistencies. And sometimes it is done to reduce the stress that students are under to perform well in academic measures. Who's hurt by grade inflation? Students are hurt if they are not earning and demonstrating a proper understanding of the skills or knowledge being gained, yet their GPA set the image of knowledge expectations higher than that of the student's reality. Students are hurt if their high school tries hard to keep grade inflation in check, yet other schools have inflated their scales to make their students look more advanced. College students are hurt by grade inflation as employers have expectations based on the grade point average you present out of college. If you don't have the knowledge and the training, you will be swimming upstream until you figure out your employer's performance and knowledge expectations. The better your knowledge base coming out of college, the easier the transition to the workforce. Admissions counselors and staff are hurt because they are working harder to examine each applicant's transcript to measure each student's academic performance. Many students are hurt because their high school grades reflect a mastery of a particular topic, when they do not possess those skills, even though their grades indicate they have a working knowledge of the topic. They end up paying more for college coursework as they have to pay for college-level classes to learn the basics before they can move forward. Finding the balance between having and enforcing higher expectations is a delicate dance. Maintaining standards requires patience, confidence, communication, and consistency. Schools are hurt as they are undermining their reputation as educational institutions, and they are hurting their students as they are not prepared for education after high school, even though they have the grade point averages to indicate they are prepared. Changing the thresholds by which education is measured undermines the notion that students, families, post-high school education institutions, and employers can find confidence in the education received by any individual student. All of these alterations undermine the point of education, learning. So what can students do? You can understand that your grade point average will never be as important as your working understanding of the information presented in class. You can also accept that the more you learn in high school and college, the more you can expand that understanding moving forward. Make your life easier. Learn all you can right now. Students and parents can encourage schools to get control of their desire to artificially reflect students' work. Now, all that said, it is essential to remember that your high school grade point average does not impact your life in perpetuity. Generally, once you start any form of college, your high school grade point average is no longer used to measure your skill-based knowledge or potential. Then your college work steps to the forefront. However, within a few years, you will be able to shine based on your work performance rather than your classroom performance. Grade inflation is counterproductive for educators and students. If you found this information useful, click the like button or subscribe. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below.